Hello once again, my name's Ashley. Thank you for tuning into our event. We understand the physical and mental health consequences gun violence can bring to communities that are deeply affected. This is why our biggest priority of the event is centering survivors. We have a powerful panel of survivors who are here to share their perspectives, and we are so thankful and happy to have them here with us. Before I pass it over to our facilitator, Regan, I would like to once again take a 30-second moment of silence to acknowledge the lives we've lost due to gun violence, as well as the survivors who are forever impacted. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Reagan and I'm a part of the Youth Intern team for WAVE. Today I'm going to be facilitating the healing conversation with survivors. Healing is important because without it a person cannot recover and cannot truly be at peace. During this conversation, I'll be asking some questions about what healing looks like and its relation to gun violence prevention to our panelists. At this time, if each panelist could briefly introduce themselves and their background, that'd be great.
My name is Debra Gillespie. I am the founder of Mothers Against Gun Violence.
My name is Anita Peters, and I am a fine artist from Milwaukee.
Thank you. Now I'm going to get started with the questions we have prepared. So first, what do you think is the importance of centering the voices of survivors in the gun violence prevention movement? And either one of you can start.
Well, I think it's important for survivors to have a voice from talking to different survivors. The opportunity to express their stories is a healing experience. So to begin healing.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a community of us who are still here to tell the stories and share our different ways of healing and quite possibly make things better for another human being that didn't even know we could relate to. I think it's important to just share, like you said. Yeah, I agree.
Do you guys feel as though you have been given a platform to speak out about gun violence prevention? And do you feel that your voice has been heard?
I think it's an ongoing struggle to obtain platforms to speak out about gun violence, especially for BIPOC people. It's our voices are easily obfuscated by mainstream media, and that's something that needs to change.
Yes and no. I just kind of want to consider the fact that the last time I really had a chance to talk about my experience with gun violence, I was being questioned by two lawyers in front of a judge, and I was definitely under oath. Like, that's the last time I talked about it. Like, other than that, that's the only really context I have around what do I remember about experiencing that, and then I'm left with the aftermath of what happens, of the aftermath of reality of this pattern of this phenomenon, and I'm just glad that we're here to be able to talk about it. There's a reason why,
The next question also kind of relates to the aftermath. What resources were you given, or what resources do you wish you had been given to help with your healing process?
For me, the resources that were given were support groups. At the time, Janetta Robinson had a support group, and show you how old my case is. That helped me quite, it just really helped me a lot. Um, but when it happened to me, no one came to me offering a lot of resources. I had to find them on my own.
For me, I felt like I'm in a situation where I didn't even know I needed resources. And then I realized that raising awareness could be used as a tool. Like, resources don't always have to be something tangible. The fact that awareness has been raised, and now I'm learning the language of surviving gun violence. And now that I realize I'm a survivor, and then I look back on my life and look at my coping mechanisms and how I dealt with trauma, I feel like that's why it's important for us to, like I said, raise awareness, because we have people around us to come together and help us with new ideas. We don't have to come up with everything for ourselves. We are a community for a reason, so we come together and we come up with these resources in order to make more of a peaceful just environment for everybody. So I say all of that to say, what the question was about resources, right? About whether or not we received resources. Yes. I don't feel like, well, I feel like awareness is a resource that needs to be emphasized. That's it.
Okay, thanks. And moving on, what has been one of the most healing things that you've done?
For me, it's been prayer. Prayer has gotten me through my tragedy. And if not for prayer and reading, I think I'd be in a really deep hole, and it'd be hard for me to get out of it. So for me, prayer and reading. I'd also say friendships too, and family. I'm sorry, Anita.
You're fine. You're fine. Everything you said rang so true. Definitely on the friends and family part, keep them very, very close. One thing that's helped me on this journey is really using prayer to embody peace, and not necessarily be the one to be just embodying peace and being the change that you really want to see in the world. And honestly, I use my art as a painter, and I specialize in acrylic painting. I use my art to show the world the beauty that I see in what others might consider not so beautiful, or not worth the picture, quote unquote. Sorry, no pun intended.
Okay, this next question kind of piggybacks off of what you both said about having friendships and families help you heal. Are there any new social connections that you have made, or old ones that have been strengthened throughout your healing process?
Wow, definitely. I've met a lot of people through my healing process, other survivors. Just initially through going to a support group after my initial loss, and throughout the years of staying in touch with them and meeting other survivors throughout the years. And also through my activism on, speaking out for responsible gun laws, for responsible gun laws. So meeting people that way too.
I would actually like to speak towards an experience that I share with a really close friend of mine. where we were exposed to the misuse of weapons. To be more clear, we were exposed to gun violence, and the way that these experiences, because it was more than one time, but we've experienced one together. And the thing is, the way that we've molded that experience and that trauma and the way we feel about it, it's really driven like our fight for peace in the world. Like the fact that she is currently in the field of helping women who are survivors of domestic abuse, domestic violence. And I have committed my art to exposing the narrative, the real narrative of my community, exposing the real lives and the real beautiful souls that live behind the kind of like distorted narrative that the media tries to portray. You know, it's more than that. So I try to create art that tells the real story. So that's the fact that we share that connection and we chose to be the change brought us closer. I really have liked that. So.
Thanks for sharing that. The next question is, what do you think is the best thing a person or community can do to help another person heal?
Wow. I think let them know that you're here for them, and tell them that you will help them, any way that they may need help, within your means, of course. And I think that in reference to the media, because as soon as a tragedy strikes, I think they need to be more considerate and compassionate for the victims, and not just stick a mic in their face, and use their tears and their pain as a entertaining blurb for the news. So just be compassionate and let them know that you're there, and stay in touch. Those are my suggestions. I could go on with the news, but I'll stop.
I could go on and agree with you all day, because a lot of what you're saying is resonating. One thing that you said about being there for each other, that's definitely true, because the easiest feeling to feel is alone. And the one thing that I've learned throughout this journey is there are so many people who feel like me and are willing to work towards finding the good out of the bad things that happen. Not everything is meant to just make you sad. Things don't happen to you just to tear you down. It's for a reason. It's for a lesson. It's to help others and to prevent things and to make sure that people feel supported and needed and together and validated and all those things. Any one of those things. Sorry.
Okay. How has gun violence continued to affect you and your community? And have you noticed any lasting impacts?
Gun violence affects not only my community, but all of our communities. And it does have long lasting impact for generations, because the uncle's not there, the brother's not there, the son's not there, or the mother's not there, or the aunt's not there, or the grandfather or grandmother's not there. And it eliminates what could have been. So gun violence is not just affecting us today, but it will affect us in the future. So,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
For me, so initially when I hear you ask this, I think of how other people might display their trauma, and I don't really know what to look for in terms of like, if I'm walking outside, like how is my community shown like they've been affected? Like I don't really know what to look for like in that sense. But when I do think about the way that my closer family, my immediate family has prevented further experiences with like the exposure of guns, we put bars on the windows. We had security systems. People had cameras and all these different things. And then when I walk outside and I look around my neighborhood, I see other people with bars on their windows, tall fences, privacy fences, and shades are drawn. And it's like lockdown almost. And like the only livelihood you really see are kids playing outside. But then you have this issue of again the misuse of these weapons so carelessly in this hurt community. All these things don't mix and we get tragedy. And I think it's like a vicious cycle. It's not necessarily like, how could you not see how it's affected, because everything is like drawn together almost.
I agree.
Thank you. And then one last question. What is one final thought or thoughts that you would share with other survivors?
Wow. I love what Anita said earlier, that you're not alone. And even though you feel as if you're alone, you're not alone. And you didn't do anything wrong. I know when you lose a child or anyone in your family to gun violence, you try to think, what could you have done to change it? And the answer is nothing. So you're not alone, and reach out to others. It's okay to cry and to say that you're hurting. And it's important for you to share their story for healing. And even if you don't have a platform like today that we're fortunate enough to be on, still use the platform that you have, which is your family, your friends.
100%. Always use your platform. One thing that I notice is that I actually am not in the field of gun violence. I am in the field of art, and I have a background in education and community engagement. But again, like I said, everything is connected. And one lasting thought that I would have for survivors, that just feels good to say, because now I feel like I got another family under my belt. One last thing that I would like to say is that trauma doesn't always have to be seen as a negative thing. And it's all about perception and what you do with what you perceive. It's not always meant to be perceived as something sad that happened. There's a way that you can manipulate that sadness into happiness, and you just have to dissect what good can come from it. So when sharing your experience is the important part after that. Like I share my experience of making my art because of my experiences in my community, and it helps people come together and like, oh, I used to live on that block, or like, hey, I didn't know Milwaukee had such beautiful skylines, or like whatever it is. People who think that gun violence does not affect them, to the people who feel gun violence has ruined their lives, and everyone in between. It's important that we understand that it's all about how you perceive it and what we can do about the damage that's already been done. Yeah.
Thank you both so much for sharing and taking the time to have this conversation and answer these questions. And thank you for everyone who listened in. I hope that this conversation gave everyone a little bit of more insight into what healing looks like and showed another side of gun violence and gun violence prevention.
Thank you, Wave, for having this.
Yes, thank you, Wave.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I came in on camera super bright, so I apologize if I hurt anybody's eyes. So I wanted to thank our panelists again. I wanted to thank our facilitator. We finished the panel up a little bit early, and so I am going to just pass it off to our another intern to give us some closing remarks and some final thoughts. And so I will do that now. But thank you all so much. This conversation meant so much to me because I also have a handful, more than a handful of experiences, personal experiences with gun violence and losing people, and being part of this work is really hard, and it can feel really isolating sometimes. And so thank you all for sharing your perspective. As survivors, it's always appreciated, and it's so imperative to the work that we do. Without survivors, we wouldn't know which direction to take in gun violence prevention. So thank you so much for being here. And so I'm going to pass it over to Eileen once I get our technology back together. So,
Anita, I want to connect with you.
All right. Hello, my name is Eileen, and I just want to thank you all so much for your presence today. We really would not have been able to do this without our wonderful panelists, facilitators, and audience. We truly appreciate you all for being here. I know we all learned a lot together and gained a ton of insight during the last panel, as well as the panels before it. We want to thank our panelists for being vulnerable and open in these difficult but necessary conversations. We'd also like to thank the amazing Wave crew, especially Deja and Mercedes, for guiding us along in the planning process and supporting our learning throughout this entire internship. Lastly, a huge thank you to all of my peers in the internship program for putting this all together. At Wave, we dedicate ourselves to finding equitable, common sense solutions to gun violence. Please find Wave on social media and visit our website, waveedfund.org, to find out how to be more involved with our organization. Also, stay tuned for our upcoming Wave of Day of Giving on August 17th. Be sure to take time to do the things that you enjoy and be well.